Have you felt alone with your ET and alien ideas about our neighbours across the universe? Well, I'm going to tell you, we are not alone. I've got the boss on the show today, Joe Montaldo, and he is going to share with us just how far this alien conversation is reaching people and what's happening. Oh, I'm so excited. It's going to be a great show. Stay tuned.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
G'day. Welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain, awakening and expanding consciousness on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3 FM. And the boss is on the show today, Joe Montaldo. Welcome to the show, Joe. So great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Karen. I've been keeping up with you and Sean. It's you and the two Seans on Sunday.
On Sunday, yeah. Well, so of course, I'm in Sydney, Australia, so it's Monday here. It's like Monday.
Oh, that's true. It is Monday for you. I forget.
Yeah, Monday for me, but Sunday for you.
Time traveling again. I love talking to Australia because, it's time traveling. Anytime I talk to somebody in Australia, it's because, quite a few of our guests are from Aussie land.
Yeah.
Well, we just did a show. Where was he from? Oh, anyway, they live in an opal mine. Everything's underground in this huge opal mine. And they have apartments down there and bars and stores. And the reason we were doing interviews because around it on the top of the ground, they have UFO-shaped housing. I was what? Wow. And he was using, I said, dude, how far out in the never are you? He said, far. I was like, what? He is. I mean, he's out in like Neverland. But it is cool to see because when you're walking down, you see little chunks of opal in the walls and stuff. I was like, well, this is...
Yeah, that's in Western Australia. There's a place called Broome. I've actually never been there. I mean, Australia is, the same
huge.
size.
I know it's a big place.
Have you been over there? Yeah. I once had a guest on the show, had an NDE. He was one of the most famous NDE, near-death experiences. And he said to me, he's old now and I think he's lost his sight, but he said to me that when he saw the beings of light on the other side, the closest thing that he could ever imagine on Earth that looked like them were opals. And he said, I've always wanted to come to Australia to check out the Australian opals.
Got some beautiful opals down. I mean, they really do.
But I thought that was so amazing to look into an opal. And he said, that's what these beings of light, he called them angels, look like. They look like the opals. And I thought, wow.
Besides, your government doesn't allow me in Australia.
No way. Why?
Yeah, because I'm banned because I busted him on Pine Gap by accident on purpose.
Oh, my God. Now, listen, I want to read your bio because I just found out more about Joe, just tweaking his bio this morning, tonight for you guys. But so Joe Montaldo is the founder and national director of I.C.A.R, which is the International Community for Alien Research, which created United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which we are streaming on, obviously. Syndicated radio network, which currently has 35 live shows. I think you said 120 shows, but only 35 live at the moment, and reaches over 120 countries, which I didn't know. I actually thought it was only America and Canada, but you said to me, so I've learned so much about the network just talking to you. And I.C.A.R has close to 125,000 abduction cases on file.
30 years.
Yeah, amazing where this is going. Originally, the radio started on a little network on Riverside, Iowa, and then grew and grew and grew to what it is today. Let me tell you some of the stats. Joe hosts UFO Undercover along with 4 other shows on the network, which currently reaches in total around 11 million people a week. And I think that the network reaches, how much does the network reach with all the different shows?
35 million a week, depends on what's going on, unless it's a holiday. We just came through the holidays, but and we did even good this holiday. By the way, you should follow me on the holidays. You know how many books I give away? Last year I gave away 2,500 books.
Oh, really? Well, Michelle was sending me my stats and they weren't particularly down. And she was saying, oh, don't
I
worry,
know.
it's just the holidays. And I'm like, but they're the same. Like my stats
You were
are the
doing
same.
good. The Friday, Saturday, and Sunday shows didn't seem to be affected by I guess because the holidays fell in the middle of the week this year. None of y'all were really affected. Matter of fact, a couple of shows were up. I was like, "Whoa, look at this! This is nice." I'm seeing that stuff, and y'all should do better archives too pretty soon once we figure out what happened with SoundCloud. But anyway, enough of that.
Oh yeah, that's another. Yeah, I want to talk to you about SoundCloud. But anyway, that's another story. But yeah, a lot of people say to me, especially in America, because I speak to a lot of people in the States, that they feel completely alone in this conversation. You know, even spiritual awakening conversation, they feel alone. And when I look at your stats and I look at the amount of people that you're reaching and the amount of people that are interested in this conversation, we are not alone. We are a force. We are a force to reckon with. Anyway, let me finish this bio. I don't even know where I'm up to. UFO. Oh, God, I've gone lost. So you've been a researcher and an investigator of alien contact and abduction and experiences for over 40 years. And also a board member representing Contactees on many groups and for Dr. Michael Salla's Exopolitics Institute. He's another Aussie. And the website is UPRNtalkradio.com. And you've also been known for The Unexplained with William Shatner in 2019. Did you produce that show, The Unexplained?
No, that was every now and then we get lucky and we get to do joint ventures with TV shows or with other radio networks and stuff like that. And it has to do with how some things, it just sometimes it's just fate or luck is probably a better way of saying it, because you might happen to be somewhere when you bump into somebody and they introduce you to this one. And it's how I got on Netflix. I was filming in LA for Ancient Aliens. And they gave me this young lady. Okay, that sounds bad, but anyway, they gave me this woman who took me around and showed me all around LA, kept me busy for the 4 days I was there while I wasn't filming. So on the last night, she goes, "Hey, there's a big gala event. You want to go? You got a tux?" I said, "Yeah, I always bring a tux with me." She said, "Well, cool, let's go." So we get to this place, and she's introducing me all these big shot producers and stuff. And the guy's telling me about they wanted to do a show on abductions, where they take the abduction and reenactment and have me as the not the editor, shit, my brain just went off.
Producer?
No, I'm just a guy who's talking.
Oh, host, like the.
Yeah, well, it's not even a host. What would you call him? Anyway, close enough.
And, that does the talk over.
Yeah,
I'm
just. So I'm giving the descriptions and everything about what's going on and explaining what's going on. And so he said, can you come in the morning and try out for it? And I'm like, oh man, my plane's leaving at like 7:30. I know at 10:30. And he said, well, look, can you get here for 6:30? And I asked the lady, I said, can you bring me at 6:30? She said, yes, it's sure. So I went to the audition, and a narrator, he said, I've heard your voice on air. He said, you got a really good voice for this. He said, he gave me some stuff to read, and then he asked me what I knew about alien abductions, and I told him. He said, oh, you'll be perfect. So we were set up to do 14 episodes immediately, and of course, guess what? COVID came. But because of them, I met some other people while I was there who introduced me to some other people. It's just how the industry works. You don't get anywhere unless you know somebody somewhere along the line. It's how I met George Norrie. I was introduced to him in D.C. I got to do live in studio with George Norrie in Washington, D.C., which was a blast. Yeah, it was a blast. I drove.
Yeah, so I was just saying to Joe, I was listening to you on Coast to Coast with George Norrie. I think it was back in 2009, 2007, or 2014. I can't remember.
He hates that cases. He hates that shit.
He hates that you what?
I rewrite cases. He's like, because he told me, very first time I ever went on Coast to Coast, very first time, they brought me on to talk about UFO cases.
Yeah.
And so he said, I hear you one of the experts. I'm like, expert? I said, well, no, but I know a lot about it. So we're talking and we go through a bunch of cases, Shag, Harvard. I said, well, I rewrote the Betty and Barney Hill case. And he tells me, you'll never change my mind on the Betty and Barney Hill case. I said, well, can I tell you? He said, sure. Yeah, I said, it's going to take about 20 minutes. He said, no problem. We're not due for a break for 20 minutes. Go ahead. So I started talking, and I'm yap for 20 minutes, and I shut up, and it's dead silence. It's just quiet. I'm like, George, you awake? He said, son of a bitch, you changed my mind. He said, that's impossible. How? He stuttered. I've never heard him even stutter on air before. And it just caught him off guard because it's a much more plausible explanation to what happened to the hills. And he's like, he said, you really get down and do your research, don't you? I said, well, because I'm looking for the truth. I'm not looking for what some idiot's going to tell me. I said, I'm looking for the truth. I said, I need credibility. I said, and that's what we're looking for. And when I walked him through the entire thing, he was like, well, that's my new theory on the hills now. It was great. It was great. It was.
Sherry says hi, Camille. We've got a few Canadians online. We've got some.
Oh yes, I love
Germany.
the Canucks, man. We got a lot of Canucks on the network.
Listen to Joe, and you're an awesome storyteller, and a few people in the States and Germany. We've got Europe online. So was George a bit of a skeptic before you enlightened him about the Betty and Barney Hill case?
Well, no, he believed what he had been told by Kathleen Maldron and by Stanton Friedman, who, by the way, before he passed, I had interviewed Stanton 45 times. Oh, I remember when I interviewed him about what he did for a living as a nuclear physicist. Yeah. And he's like, really? We're going to talk about that? I'm like, yeah. That was 2 hours. We talked about his career and how he got there and everything. He was stunned. He had so much fun. He was giggling like a little schoolgirl. It was just funny as hell.
Oh, he was so sweet. I never had him. I've had Kathleen on the show, but I didn't get
Kathleen, unfortunately, and I we butt heads on a regular, but not anymore. But we used to, yeah.
She was very cross the T's and dot the I's, very, very.
Yes, she got mad at me because she had heard about the theory. Because I said the case they're talking about, the one in the case that made him famous, that was a military abduction. That wasn't an alien abduction. The alien abduction actually happened in Canada, and it was easy to prove. But she got mad about it because she wrote her book. And the book suggested something else, and she changed too much stuff. Like she said there were TV monitors, like flat screens on the walls. No, that's not what Betty and Barney Hill said was there. They said they were pull down maps. I mean, pull down maps, slide out drawers, paperback and hardcover books. I've never heard of any of this kind of stuff in an alien abduction before. They took skin and fluid samples like the CDC would do. There were men in CDC outfits there, and when they took them out the car, both descriptions. And I even talked to the hypnosis about this. They described Barney's very good description: black shoes, black pants, black shirts, and black duck-billed caps. Oh man, that's some kind of agency there. That's an alphabet group there. There's no doubt that's ABC, CBS is somebody. CIA, NSA, Secret Service. It was some group and that's who got him. That's who originally got him. And the reason why is they knew the hills had been taken in Canada because they had a colonel living in their house. Barney was friends with two other colonels. He grew up with these guys his entire life. They had probably been following since he was a young man because he'd been seeing psychiatrists since he was like 7. They knew about him. He was a contactee that a government actually knew about and followed.
So are you saying that he had first of all been taken by real cosmic neighbors, and
he got taken by aliens,
which we call
on a regular basis.
I don't like the word alien because people kind of.
I'm kind of with you on that. Aliens have got a bad slang.
It sort of has a negative connotation, but anyway,
it does.
And then after that, the MILAB, the military took them and made it like it was an alien abduction, but it was actually
because think about some of the stuff the Hill said. So and people, y'all don't have to take my word for this. There's lots of interviews they did in the late 60s, early 70s that you can hear the Hills say this in their own voices. So they checked into the hotel in Canada, right? But neither one of them can tell you the name of the hotel. They went across the street and had breakfast that morning. They can't tell you the name of the hotel, which they were looking at the sign the entire time, or the name of the restaurant that they had breakfast at. So then they leave, they get lost, they ask for directions. Barney describes him as a thin, tall black man. Betty describes him as a white, red-headed Irish policeman. Same guy. This is classic alien abduction 101. I mean, this is classic. You can't get any more classic. You can't tell you where you were. You didn't know where you were. You lost time. You're seeing different things. This is classic alien abduction 101. They were taken in Canada, returned, and the government knew they had been taken, and the government was just waiting for them to get back into the U.S. to take them and send them through the CDC. And that's what they did. Well, and it happened to Travis. Travis was handed off to the CDC. He admitted to it now, after him and I talked for a few hours.
All these years later, with so many other stories that have come out since then, it's amazing that we're still talking about it. It's kind of like
because it's a premier story.
It's a premier story, yeah. So I don't know how to pronounce this person's name. You have a stab at it, Joe.
What do we got? Robert Tyler did it. Taylor.
No, just on the screen there.
Oh,
Anyway, what are
hey,
your thoughts on
hey,
Robert
hey,
Tyler in Scotland in 79? This
I don't know. I
person,
don't think I
vive
remember.
la vie, vive la vie, viva la vie. What does that mean? Here's to life. Viva la vie is here's to life. I think that means. Anyway, I'm making it up.
I don't think I remember Robert. I'd have to go look in
You
one
don't
of my
remember.
notes. Yeah, I don't. For some reason, it's not
All
drawn.
right, let me
But
finish.
that's called getting old, people. By the way, so.
What was your anyway? What was your involvement with Ancient Aliens in 2009?
Ancient Aliens calls me on. So I had released a blood type study on some radio. I forgot it. Some radio network in Miami. What happened? I lost. Oh, you put me up there. So anyway,
Yeah.
I had launched this blood type study with I.C.A.R. Oh God, it was like 15 years ago, 18. It might even be 20 years ago. At least 18 years ago. And about 8 or 9 years after it had been running, I was invited on a radio show in Miami, Florida, FM station. And the guy wanted to know what it was about. And I started telling him. And then all of a sudden, I started getting invites to all these radio networks wanting to talk about it. Well, Coast to Coast caught wind of it and called me up and said, "Would you like to come on our network and talk about it?" I said, "Sure." So, and of course, they wanted to know what the blood type study was. Why were we asking contactees what their blood types were? Because one, we were interested in telepathic abilities, and does everyone have latent telepathic abilities, or do only some people? This is a big question, because I was always raised that everybody had latent abilities. Isn't true, but I was raised that way, thinking, because I come from a group that are very telepathic, and so I just figured everybody did. After testing and a lot of other stuff, we figured that's not really how it worked. But that was part of the reason, because we were looking for groups that maybe their blood could show us that. So we started asking. What we found out was that after 68,000 cases and responses, not just from our own cases, but from other cases and from other organizations, that 65% to 68% of all contactees were RH negative.
Wow.
Well, thinking of this, the world's population of RH negative is only 15%. That's a way skewed number. So we were all like, whoa, wait a minute now. So that started making us look at all sorts of things. And, what's the difference between RH positive, RH negative? First off, RH negative doesn't share its genes with the rhesus monkey. RH positive does, but RH negative doesn't. Actually, when you really look at RH negative, it's almost like it's a separate, like there was an intervention. And every scientist I've talked to, and I work with the top 3 experts in blood types. As a matter of fact, they're still up on the ICAR website. No one can tell you why RH negative popped up about 45,000 years ago out of the blue for no reason. Mother Nature said, "Oh, let me make a blood type that kills babies." Wait, what? Mother Nature don't do them kind of things. Why was she going to create something that kills babies? I mean, thanks to the Australians, by the way, we would still be dealing with this. So the O negative and O positive are not compatible. The O positive genes want to kill the O negative genes, and that's just all it is. Or the factors just want to wipe each other out. And a lot of times the babies were being born still. So until I think 85, you had to have a blood test in the United States to get married to see if you were compatible. Yes, this is a fact, people. You had to have a blood test. Matter of fact, when I got married, I had to have a blood test. I was like, for what? Why do you want to know my blood? Well, we're going to see if you're compatible. And by the way, I'm RH negative. My wife was RH positive. So then they said, well, no, it's not. It's actually not compatible because the RH factors are different. And so they told us that we'd have to either do this. And then about 5 years after, they said they came up with what they call the anti-denigen D gene shot so that you can have a baby. And this was because of a gentleman in Australia. He had some oddball gene. They have no idea why. And that was the gene that tipped the balance so that we could all have the 2 factors could have babies together. But Mother Nature had made it intentionally where we couldn't. It was almost like she was trying to wipe out the RH positive, or someone was. Because think of this, RH negative is already 15% of the world's population in just 40,000 years. 80,000 years, it's going to be 40%. It's growing.
It's growing. So are you saying that it's part of the hybrid program? I
hate to stretch it out like that, but it has to be, because I can't see Mother Nature. And there's other things. Think about it. O negative is the universal donor. Everyone on the planet can take O negative. Don't matter what kind of blood you have, you can take O negative. But only O negative people can only take O negative. So even if you're the rarest blood type in the world, which is AB, which is 1.5, you can still take O negative. But the O negative people can't. So technically, they are the rarest blood on the planet because they can only take their own blood. But their plasma, they can give them to anybody on the planet. It's why field hospitals save so many more lives now, because they don't have to have, all these different blood types. One, bam, that's it.
Just one.
And
I
put
did
it out
not
there.
know that. Wow,
And
that's
it's also why when you go to donate blood, they give you so much more money if you're O negative.
Oh, really? I did
Yes,
not
they
know.
do.
I think I'm a B something. I don't know, B or A. I actually don't even know my blood type.
Yeah, it's
But I'm not RH negative.
we had to learn because everybody, when you join the military, it's on your dog tags.
Good segue. What I want to know is how did you get into the UFO investigation thing, and what were you doing before? Like, what were you doing? What made you look into this stuff?
While I was in the Navy, so I did a lot of stuff when I was in the Navy, but just to sum it up, I was on the USS Nimitz, and there was a lot of pilots on the Nimitz, and I was a plane captain, so I was in charge of the flight deck. This is after I got a special forces training. And so I'm on the carrier. I'm actually what they call holding duty, because they don't know where we were going to be assigned yet. So while I was there, I was an avionics, electronics, advanced avionics electronics. That's my other MO for the Navy. That's what I did. So I was on the flight deck, and I was a plane captain. We're launching jets all the time. And we'd be talking to these pilots in the flight lines, and they would be telling us about all the weird shit they were seeing. Which they're not supposed to talk about, by the way. You're supposed to report it. Even way back then, you were supposed to report it, but you weren't supposed to talk about it. And every pilot I met, both while I was on the carrier and back when I was back in the States, were telling me about stuff they had seen flying, stuff that just defied anything their aircraft could do. And since they were flying the most state-of-the-art thing we had at the time, you had to stop and kind of listen and go, well, what the hell? And you can't think every pilot's nuts, because it was different squadrons, different ships, different places. So it's not even like they knew each other. And they were still telling the same story. So that fascinated me. But when I got home, people would just randomly walk up. I'd be working somewhere. When I was going back to school, I'd be working in different places at night, and all people just come up and start telling me about their alien contact. Out of the blue, my dentist, who I'd had my entire life, I think I was 25, she just starts telling me one day how she's being taken by. This is a woman who owns like 11 of these places. She's running for political office. She's got all kind of stuff going for her life, and she's going to tell me that aliens are taking her. Get the fuck out of here. Why would she do that? And it just started happening on a regular basis. I just kept running into people for some reason were just telling me, and for the life of me, I couldn't explain it. And I had a couple of friends that were psychologists, and I asked them, I said, what is this? Is this some kind of phenomena? He said, I don't know, Joe. She said, you're a good listener. I'm like, yeah, but you don't walk up to somebody like working in a store and just start telling them about your alien contact. and not like you're just messing with them. I mean, they're going into detail about what was going on in their life. I'm like, get the bleep out of here.
You've got a neon sign in your aura that says, please tell me about your alien contact.
So after, and wait, it's worse, because I thought these people were effing crazy. I didn't think the pilots were, but I thought these people, there ain't no aliens taking your back ass stupid self. It's not happening. And so I started looking, and man, about 5 years into looking, I was like, son of a bitch, this is not looking good. MUFON picked me up as a research expert. And I got with them when we put their first 5,000 cases we could find together. And it looked, wow, something's going on. And the more people asked, and unfortunately for me, I had a lot of friends in the military and in industry. And over the years, I made a lot more friends. And the more questions I asked, more answers, more things I found out that made me want to go, okay, it looks like we may be actually being visited. And we started putting together things, has these kind of, we'll put like questionnaires together, 50, 75 on the websites. There's things where you can go fill out what's happened to you. They're very involved. They take a long time, usually take the average person a couple hours. They would design like that on purpose so that somebody won't take the time to fake it. I mean, if you're going to fake it, you're going to spend 4 or 5 hours faking it. And I figure if you're going to put in that much time, we might as well read it. It may be funny anyway. But these people really get on there and they tell us a lot of information. We ask a lot of personal stuff. It's because there's a lot of things that go on that we want to know about. And we want to see if there's similarities in certain cases from the reptilians, humans, and greys, because that's really the only three that abduct people is those three. But
Okay, say that
and
again. The Greys, the reptilians, and who are the other people?
And we call them human aliens because there's a lot of different names for them if you go back in ancient times. But I just prefer to call them human aliens because I notice stuff like Pleiadians sometimes get confused with Arcturians. They're not the same species, and really neither one of them go by those names, which cracks me up. So listen, humans, I'm explaining something to y'all, okay?
That's what they told me, because I don't know if you know, but that I channel, I channel a lot of things, but including galactic consciousness. And when I've asked different groups that, they call you Pleiadians, are you the Pleiadians? And they say, well, that's not what we call them, but that's what humans call us. And I'm like, oh,
because they think that's the star system they live in.
Right.
So that's what they call them.
Yeah.
But and same thing with our Arcturian, because there's Arcturian star systems, but that's not actually what they were. And plus, in most cases, we're probably not even going to be able to pronounce what their actual name is.
Absolutely.
We're still a long ways from a lot of their languages. The Greys, it's not. What's funny is all three of the races we're talking about do have a spoken language. Probably haven't spoken in a couple of million years, but they do have a spoken language. They do have a written language because in some of the ships, you get descriptions of things being written in different places, but not in the Greys. But today they're all telepathic. And all of them are. And by the way, we won't even consider you a contactee if you're not at least empathic. I've never met a contactee or anybody that's been taken that's not empathic or telepathic or both.
Yeah.
Fortunately, telekinesis seems to defy us in general, but which is a good thing. I mean, it's not a bad thing. Not
everybody. Not everybody. I've done it.
I've done it. Real telekinesis. No, what I'm talking about is the type of telekinesis I'm talking about. If it existed, would be used by the government because Trump would just say, "Oh, come here for a minute. I want you to squeeze that blood vein in Vladimir Putin's brain."
Oh, right, yeah.
And I want you to squeeze because it looks like an aneurysm and it can kill. So that kind of stuff just really isn't around. Or the kind of stuff where you can lift up, the airplane and drop it on top of somebody else. Those abilities really haven't. I'm not saying there's not any of them out there. It's just they really haven't. It's not like an empathic or telepathic ability. We just really haven't developed that yet. And it's not that I don't think we're going to. I really think we're going to. I just think at the moment we're just not that powerful as a group.
As a group,
but we'll get there.
I had Susie Hansen on the show years ago, and she was talking about being up on the ships when she was a kid. She's a New Zealand contactee. Do you know Susie?
No, Suzanne. She's a great.
And she, something that she said that has stuck with me over the years, that she said she was in this environment, and the sort of walls and the floor fell away and they were in this sort of smoky environment. They were with a group of kids, hybrid kids, human kids, grey kids, ET. And they were doing this manifestation process with their mind where they were dematerializing their body and rematerializing the atoms and the cells into something else. Like, it seems like science fiction. But the humans couldn't do it. The human hybrids couldn't do it. And I said, why? And they said, we didn't have the same frequency. Like, the frequency that they hold in their body is beyond anything that we can even understand. Like, it's
or they would be
beyond ecstasy, beyond joy, beyond and they couldn't reach that heightened frequency. And I thought,
because as far as we really know, the only ones that shapeshift are the light beings. Everybody else is. So put this in perspective for you. We do these kind of experiments all the time. So let's say we know where some Greys are going to be. Okay, there's Greys have habits just like all the races do, and when you do the kind of research we do, you start to learn some of these eccentricities, some of these places they like to frequent, like Gulf Breeze, Florida. So there are places you can put yourself where you may run into them, even if you're not the person that they're after. The reason we started wanting to do this is we wanted to see if 3 telepaths could stop a single Grey.
Mm-hmm.
It worked. We all regretted it, but it worked. It did. The 3 did manage to stop the single Grey. But the Greys don't physically shapeshift. What they do is they'll take an image and put it in their head, and when you look at them, that's all you see is that image. That's it. And it doesn't matter who looks at them. Anyway, they could be walking up and down the street. Everyone's going to see that image. As they approach them to see that Grey, they're not going to see a Grey. They're just going to see a man walking down the street. Yeah. We stumbled across that because of one of our French directors. Oh, I shouldn't even say this. Was having an affair with a reptilian, but it wasn't a reptilian at the time. Okay.
He thought he was having an affair with the human.
She thought she's a beautiful woman too. She thought she met this guy. He was he's a Saudi guy. He was Saudi Arabia. He came from a wealthy family, and they were dating. And she was telling me about him one night. And I said, something about it doesn't sound right. I said, do me a favor. I said, let me put you under. So she flew to the United States, and we spent 10 days in hypnosis sessions. 10 days. Everything videotaped. All of it. So in one of the sessions, I said, I want you to reach out, and I want you to tell me what his arm feels like right now. She goes, well, his arms are kind of hairy. I said, well, just reach out and tell me what it feels like. And she says, she's reaching out, and she actually physically reaches up, and she's got her eyes closed, and she's going, Joe, it kind of feels like cold suede or like a warm. She says, as I'm stroking it, it feels like warm suede. And she opened her eyes, and she said, son of a bitch. I'm like, what's the matter? She said, I want to stop. I'm like, okay. And right as she said she wanted to stop, not only my camera, the magnetic thing inside just melted. It just literally, it just melted. But the tape was still intact. So the conversation was still there. The thing she wears, so we give all contactees, when we're doing hypnosis, we give them a thing that clips to the lapel that they can take home with, and that records the entire conversation from start to finish. When my voice starts, it starts automatically. It's protection for them and for us. You never know what kind of people you're going to meet. So, and there's a lot of that going on, and there's always somebody with us. I always tell people the same thing: bring someone with you that you implicitly trust, because one, they're going to hear stuff they probably never heard from you before, and two, we're not going to do the session, especially if it's a female, without somebody with you, because there's going to be somebody with me sitting behind me, monitoring the whole thing.
So she realized that what she thought
flipped.
was her boyfriend was actually a grey ET.
No, it was a reptilian, and not just a little reptilian. It was a big. I'm like, how'd this guy get on the airplane with you? She's like, I'm still trying to figure that out myself. And I said, are you sure this is what this is? So we took a break, and we came back the next day, and I put her under. I said, we're going to walk through this. I want you to walk from the time you met him until we are right now. Every event you can think of. So we're talking, and she's, it's just a casual. She's probably at about level 6 hypnosis. She's down a decent amount, enough that I could control the conversation. And we're talking, and I'm like, open your eyes. And she opened her eyes, and she screamed. I mean, she screamed so much that the blood was going to come out of my freaking ears. I'm like, D, calm down. What's going on? I mean, and her and I are pretty good friends. So I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And she said, give me something to draw. And she just starts drawing out this thing, which I've seen this picture probably 100 times, 150 times by different women. And I'm looking at him going, and she starts doing these circles and these marks, because reptilians, depending on what family they're with, they have colors on their bodies and on what we would consider scales. They're not actually scales, but they're color toned. And the colors actually have something to do with what families they're related to. And reptilians are weird because some of them have wings, some have gills. There's probably about 12 different tribes. They live on about 6 different planets. They're all the same species, but they've developed differently because of the different places they live. But they're all still related to each other, and they all still work for the same place. They still go to the same one temples. They still live in the same type of things. It's interesting. There's a lot of information on reptilians, because in a lot of ways we're a lot like them. We have a lot of their bad habits, but also we have the reptilian section in our brain, so it makes sense that we're a lot like them. Without the reptilians, we would be little slaves still.
Yeah, I've heard that. Question.
But yeah, it's freaky.
From the name I can't pronounce, Viva la Vie. Question: what about those dreams months early that come true? Oh, when you have dreams, because I've had that happen way too many times. A lot of people have. Prophetic dreams. You're talking about prophetic dreams. What about them? It's just part of your psychic ability. I had a girlfriend the other day who was telling me about this dream where she saw smoke, black smoke. Said, did it smell like cigarette smoke? She said, no, it smelled like fire. And then all the fires in the States happened, and she said, maybe that was a prophetic dream. I said, yeah, maybe.
Could be. You never know. You never know. Waking dreams are strange things. When you have a waking dream, they're strange. And a waking dream tends to stick with you for some reason.
Yeah.
It doesn't just go away. It's there, and you can recognize it. I mean, depending on where your abilities are. I mean, we teach dream weaving, so depending on where your abilities are, what kind of control you can get out of it, what kind of answers can you pull out of it while you're still asleep, because you can recognize a prophetic or a waking dream while you're asleep, and you can seek answers. Things like, look for a newspaper, or look for a television, look for something that might have a date on it or a time or a place. Look around, see if you see something out of a window. See what your surroundings are. That helps you to identify, because most people have the dream, and then because it's a startling dream, they wake themselves up. So they miss out on all that other stuff, all that other information they could be gathering. Oh, it's my messenger. Okay. Yes, I've been doing this a long time, so I've learned a lot, and I've got a lot of gifted psychics around me. So it's plus I've got the network, which has a lot of gifted psychics. So it's I can do a lot of research by proxy because of the amount of friends I have and the amount of people I know in the field, and I get to argue with them. Like the ghost people hate me because I always tell them ghosts are dimensional bleed through. It drives them crazy.
Oh God, that's a whole podcast on itself.
Yeah, it just drives them mad. I mean,
ghosts are dimensional bleed throughs. I love that.
Oh, it's so much fun too. They get so mad at me. I said, "Well, prove it's not." And they're like, "Well, I can't." I'm like, "Okay, then you can't say it's not dimensional bleed through because we have some people. I don't want to call them psychics because it's not really what they are. They have the ability to see across dimensions. I met one of them by accident. We were talking one day, and she kept looking and saying something. Like, what are you looking at? And she said, I keep seeing this, and she's describing this. I'm like, what the hell? So I called a friend of mine who I know can do that. And I said, I want you to come over here and sit down, and I want you to look where she's looking at. And they start talking, and she starts describing what she's seeing, and she's freaking out because she's describing what she's seeing, which nobody else has ever done before. And then they both looking at each other like, what the hell? And I'm like, okay, well, could y'all tell me what y'all are seeing there? I'd like to be in on this too. And but they can see across dimensions. It's also one of those things. I think sometimes when a person experiences after a parent dies or a friend or something dies and you see the loved one, but a lot of times when you hear someone describe that event, it's always off. Like, oh, my dad was wearing a pink shirt. He would never wear a pink shirt. Or, his hair was blonde looking. Her hair was blonde and she was a redhead when she died. So you got to stop and wonder, well, that also could be dimensional bleed through because of the amount of stress. You're already close to the veil at the point because you're so stressed to start off with. You're so hurt, so angry because someone was taken from you. You're right there at the veil, so you can push yourself across just simply from crying, or just clenching yourself is enough for a gifted psychic to push yourself across. If they don't know, they do. When they look up, they see that person standing there. They're thinking, "Oh, my dead parents come to talk to me," when it's actually a live person in the other dimension talking to you. So you have to think about all those things. So the problem for all this is some of this is definitely true. Some of this does actually happen, but some of it is exactly what the ghosty people think it is. But how do you tell the difference? It's like
so the ghosty people say that there are dead people that are walking the Earth's plane
a lot of them,
that have had, like, they did a whole show on it. What's that show called with that pretty girl? Anyway, Ghost Whisperer.
Yeah.
So in that story, because I actually enjoyed the show, but it made me mad because I thought it was so wrong. She could only talk to ghosts and she couldn't talk to people who had crossed over, according to the show. So they say that there are people that are walking the Earth's plane in their astral form that have not crossed over to the other side. What's your interpretation of ghosts?
I thought about that one time, and I started thinking about how long have we been around. So there's 8 billion people on the planet today. That means there's, 40 billion dead people. That means in heaven, hell, the astral plane, everything is really effing crowded, people. I don't know. It's a hard one. Maybe it's like purgatory, or it's like when people tell me we're in hell. So now we're probably in purgatory on earth, but still, it's just a hard thing to grasp that you just walk around in nothingness for eternity. It just doesn't, for some reason. In where it's something puts it's an imprint on something's different. Like some event happened and left an imprint, so it's a replay of an event. I understand that quickly. I do understand the dimensional bleed through. It's just the ones that are just roaming around with their finger in their butt going, well, I don't know why I'm here. I'm just, let me go scare some people on Earth. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Preston often says when he's out of body at night and he has total recall in the morning, and Dolly, that he'll wake up in his house and he'll be in his house and he'll see some entity, some human sort of looking confused there, and he'll say, let me take you to another place, and he'll take him across to a higher dimension, a different place in time and space.
So I got a question for you. And this really makes my psychic friends angry at me, so just be ready. How so we know there's other planes of existence, and we know there's other dimensions, and when they're stacked basically on top of each other. How many of those dimensions do you think humans are allowed to go in simply because of our lack of understanding? How high? 5, 6, 10? You're
When
not
you
playing with the
say
big boys, that's for sure. So you're
when
not
you say
playing.
humans,
Well, I'm talking about any entity at all that has these type of abilities. So you're not going to be in the same frame as the Greys or the reptilians, the humans, or the light beings. I mean, we're just considered ignorant to them, so they're not going to let you cross into their astral plane. They're going to be like, no, you're not allowed here. Mainly because what you would see would burn your brain. You wouldn't understand what you were seeing. There's so much because we're so young as a species that we don't understand. Trying to cross into a plane of existence that we have no point of reference to is not going to be a good thing for us. It's not going to work out well because that we humans need a point of reference, whether they're on the ground physically or floating around in the cosmos. They still need that point of reference.
It depends on your level of consciousness, though, and it depends on what aspect of you're experiencing or you're remembering while you're still in your physical.
No, I understand it, but no human can expect to have a consciousness the same way.
That the greater aspect of us is in all those dimensions, but we don't, in the human consciousness, under the river of oblivion or the veil of forgetfulness, most people don't have access to that through memory. You can access that through hypnosis, but not through conscious memory. But I think we're in all planes of existence all at once.
I see. In the old days, I used to agree with that, but today I think we're just step one.
Different aspects of us are. There's a few questions here that I want to get to. Sherry said, have you heard about the Nephilim? Have you heard about the Nephilim?
I dated one of them for a while.
What? So what's your description of the Nephilim?
See, that's what I was talking about earlier. So depending on what group you read from, the Nephilim can be humans, they can be Greys, or they can be reptilians. Just depends what book and what research group you're reading from. That's what makes all this so complicated, because the ancient world looked at some things a specific way. Like when you go back to Ike, he got some things right, he got some things wrong. But part of the reason he got some things wrong was poor translation. Since then, a lot of things have been retranslated. That's why we know Planet X is not what he said it was and all of that. And that's been easily to debunk and prove now. But still, in his case, he thought in one aspect that who was visiting with a Nephilim. So what we know for sure is there was a human race that came here first, a human type race that came here first. Not like us. They couldn't breathe the atmosphere. Their heads are like this behind us. If you look at them front on, they look like us, but they have 6 fingers, 6 toes. But they came first, and they built, according to the Sumerians and the Egyptians, they both talk about this. They built 2 great white dome cities because they could not breathe the atmosphere on this planet. Okay, this is just religion for the Sumerians. So they said what they did was they created a species, just like their cells, that could breathe the air, and told them go forth and build and get out there and do stuff. Well, that race decided, no, we're omnipotent just like the other races. So they created what the Sumerians call the 7th creation of man, being our ancestor was their last creation. So they created a species just like us, almost just like us. They weren't sentient in the way we were sentient. In other words, if they were told to go plow the field, they just went and plowed the field. If they were told to make mead, they went and made beer. If they were told to procreate, they procreated. They never asked why, and they never questioned their masters. They just did what they were told. According to the Dogon, the Sumerian, and the Egyptian, the Numos, which were the reptilians, used to come down from the mountains, steal the women, rape the women, bring the women back pregnant. They would have new babies. Those babies were different. When I first heard the story, I thought they meant they looked different, but that's not what they meant. They acted differently. They became an aggressive species. After enough of them, they overthrew the Sumerians and the other aliens and took forth. Hence the species that lives here today. I have won so much money over the reptilian section in our brain that it's not even funny anymore. I'll be lecturing at a conference. Oh, we don't have reptilians. I said, you got a phone on you? I said, I bet you $100. I said, you got your phone? Type it in. They'll type, oh, shit. And it's an important piece of our brain, people. It's not just like anything. Without it, we are just wimps. We're not as fast. We're not as smart. We're not as protective of our species. It's really a big chunk of who and what we are. And it's very important to the humans. But before, we didn't have that. We just had the original DNA of the creator, which made us slaves. And there's lots of evidence of that. And then, of course, the reptilians came along, and everything changed in the Middle East. And then there's the Tower of Babel, and everything. People started speaking different languages. Everything changed because now the humans were being challenged by the reptilians, who were just as powerful as humans were. The only reason the Greys even came here, and by the way, you don't see any mention of the Greys until just before Christ. Before that, there's hardly any mention of the Greys anywhere in time or space, at least on this planet. It was about 3,000 years ago when they first showed up. They only showed up to keep the reptilians and the humans from getting to a freaking war. They didn't want any more wars out in the cosmos anymore. They got all that stuff to stop. And the Greys are way more powerful than the reptilians and the humans, which is another thing. When I first got in the field, we were taught that they were subservient to the Greys and the humans. Well, when you start talking to contactees, you find that quickly they are not. The reptilians and the Greys, the reptilians and the humans will put their heads down when a Grey walks by, even a little 3 foot. That's how scared they are. They have organic ships, which are much more powerful than the other ships. Everything they do is they grow their own food inside the ship, which powers the ship and feeds the Grey, and it's self-replicating. I mean, they're just a species so far beyond us that it's hard for a human being to sit down and try to think like they would think. And we will one day in 100 million years or so, but not now. And they live so long. You know, an average Grey can easily live 1 billion years and then switch to a new body. They don't ever have to die. As long as they're within one of their own ships or near where their bodies are, they can switch. So we don't even know when you meet a Grey, and you'll love this part. When you meet John the Grey, or like it's Bob back there, if you meet Bob the Grey, that Bob who abducted you probably abducted your dad, your grandma, and so on back 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 years. That's how long they live forever. And think about how well they know your families, all the races that abduct. They know your family far more than you'll ever know. You know, they know people who lived and died and how they were and how they lived and how they performed, stuff we'll never know about. So think about how well they know you. Oh, I can't hear you. What happened?
Gosh, sorry, I muted myself. When you think about the lifespan of animals like pets, like dogs and cats, compared to humans, you know, we go through several dogs. It's like we're like that to them. They go through several humans because they live so long, and we have these short lives. My next.
That's why I think that's why Greys. You know, when you talk to people, a lot of times they say the Greys treat us more like well-kept pets and do things for our own good. And then, of course, the reptilians treat us like family because the reptilians look at it differently because since we share their DNA, they consider us family. That's why if you're reptilian, because reptilians have genetic, they pass on their knowledge genetically. So when they have a child, it has a full knowledge all the way back to the first reptilian. So, I mean, they're born with an enormous amount of information. And I imagine it falls in as they get older and older and older, but still, it's a lot of information. Well, humans have that same gift. And those humans in those families can access a lot of that. They can also, humans with the reptilians are allowed to access their libraries. They can go to their libraries and stuff. There's a lot of things that humans can do if they're related to the Greys. The Greys just look at us, I mean, the reptilians just look at us differently. The humans are funny because most of them look at us like we're trash, distant cousins who they shouldn't talk to because they might catch something. But there are a few that really like us for whatever reason they do. But none of them are actually here to change our outcome. And the reason you know that is you always judge everything by its actions. Well, look at the planet. Do you think the planet's any better off than it was 2 years ago, 10 years ago, 100 years ago? There's less wars today, but still, it's just 8 billion of us, and we're dying from all sorts of stuff. A reptilian could go to Washington, D.C. or Moscow or Beijing and get on television and say, hey, look, we're here. We want to see y'all join as one world and join the Galactic Federation. They could do any of that. They could give us technology, but they don't. But they don't wipe us out either. They could do that just as easy. I mean, 2 million years ago, there was 2 million of us on the planet. They could easily wipe us out.
There's a good reason that they don't. I don't think that we have the consciousness. I don't think we're mature enough consciously to handle what they could give us. And that's why what we've been doing with all this sort of consciousness expanding and awakening consciousness is so important on the planet, like to raise our vibration and see, rather than see each other as separate, to see each other as unified. So if I'm going to hurt somebody, I'm hurting myself. That unification, like that spiritual enlightenment, is really where we need to go. They're all at that level, so they can, they can do a lot more things.
And it's funny because they all seem to be spirit. That's another thing that's odd. Well, I shouldn't say odd, but different. So we know the Greys have one religion. They have one government, one religion, and the reptilians have one government, one religion. And it seems like the humans have one government, one religion. And think about this. I mean, the Greys are probably 1 billion and a half years old as a species. If they do have a religion, I imagine they know far more about God than we do. And that's what's so funny, because the Pope, I'm sorry, not the Pope, Monsignor Balducci, when I met him in Washington, D.C., Paola Harris was translating for me. So him and I were talking, and he said, this is one of the things he told me, that the Vatican believes that the aliens are on a much higher spiritual level than humans are.
The Vatican believes that?
Yes, the Vatican believes that.
There you go.
So he was the first person that told me that. 2 different Vatican astronomers told me that. And then I met a cardinal in New Orleans who also told me. He said, no. He said, we're well aware of extraterrestrials. The Vatican's been aware of extraterrestrials for probably since it started. He said, there's probably evidence all over in the honeycombs of what's been going on. He said, look at the artwork. He said, look at all the artwork with Jesus in it when there's UFOs flying around. He said, there's no doubt that the Vatican was functionally aware of it, but they can't go around telling the heathens that, hey, look, there's aliens out there that aren't God. No, we're not ready for that yet. So we're getting there. But if you did a survey today in America, 80% of Americans believe there's life in the universe. 14% believe that they're contacting anyone on our planet. So yeah, we're fine with thinking they're out there. We're just not fine thinking they're here.
That's because I asked my brothers that. They're both really into sci-fi, and I'm sure that we're all a part of the hybrid program, all of us. But anyway, I asked, do you believe in alien life, years ago? And they said exactly the same. Both of them, they said, oh yeah, I believe in them for sure, because they love it. They love the sci-fi. They love watching all that stuff. But they said they're not here on Earth. But they think of it as in, rocket-fueled propulsion systems. I mean, it's crazy to think that they would have our archaic technology to traverse the cosmos, really.
That's why I got into trouble when what's his name was given his thing at the in front of Congress a couple of weeks ago.
David Grush?
Yeah, well, he's such a good liar. He's not even funny as much as he lies. He's ridiculous.
Oh,
Greer ain't much better.
Alexander?
So what I was going over with them. So I gave testimony for them, right?
I don't know that. So you gave testimony for that
3 days in lockdown.
You get was that filmed?
Private? No. Yeah, it's filmed, but you're never going to see it. So wait, before we even started, the first thing I told them was, I said, if we're going to do this, then I want a polygrapher in here, and I want to be hooked up to a polygraph. I don't want you my questions the whole time. And so they brought in someone from Quantico, FBI, hooked me up. And it was so funny. The first day was 12 hours. Second day was 8. The third day was about 7. So
how long ago? 6 months ago?
6 months, about 6 months, maybe 8, 6 to 8 months, somewhere up in there. Mm-hmm. And the brunette, she's so what was funny was there was House reps there, Senate reps there, aides there, and several people from the Pentagon. And it was about 12 from the Pentagon. And it's so funny because Nancy's asking me these questions going on and on and on and on and on. And I'm answering, and she keeps looking at the guy. And he's like, and she says, and she stops. Boom, he's lying. There's no doubt he's lying. She said he's not. I mean, the polygraph, he's not. He said he ain't told you a lie yet. So she said, well, tell me a lie. I want to make sure this thing's working. So I told her a lie, and the machine goes, she's like, shit, you're not lying. I said, I'm not lying. I said, I wouldn't come here to lie. I said, I'm not going to waste your time or my time to lie to you. I said, come on, you're Congress. Why would I fucking lie to Congress? That's asking for trouble. And so she gets in some serious questions. And, so this guy comes up, he's got things all over his chest. It's like He-Man guy from the Army.
Military.
Yeah, he's stinking military.
He's got all these.
He's got a little pad with him with some questions, and he folds over and hands it to her. So she starts asking me the questions, and you see him. He's looking. This is, to me, it's starting to be funny. She starts looking over at the guy, and he's like, So he asked me this ridiculous question, and I started laughing. I said, "Okay, that's just a bullshit question. Why are you wasting my time with this?" And of course,
What was the question? Come on, what was the question?
He was asking me if there was really purple aliens from Mars. And, it was what I said. It was an absolute. It was he was threw it in as a test question. He wanted to see if it would stay smooth. If I was just lying. If I was one of those kind of people who just lie through the polygraph. And I said, anybody can do it, not for this long. It's impossible to do it that long. And so he's there asking questions. One of the questions come up. He goes, "Do you think that there may be some relation to people inside of our government, inside of our corporations that are aliens?" I said, "Not aliens." I said, "There's no actual aliens running our government." But I said, influenced by them, yes. There are people. I said, I don't even want to call them hybrids because they're not in hybrids like you would think of a hybrid. I said, but there are people definitely in places of power. And I said, let me ask you a question. I said, did you ever wonder why the majority of people in Hollywood and in singing and in politics have blue or greener eyes instead of brown? I said, remember, I said, the majority of people on this planet, 85% have brown eyes. I said, but why don't you see that in politicians? Why so many politicians have blue or green eyes? I said, why are so many people in the music industry blue or green eyed? Why are so many people with those colored eyes serving? I said, and then when you go check out their colored eyes, you're going to find out that 2/3 of them are Rh negative. I said, it's the new population taking over. They're kicking y'all out slowly but surely. I said, they're the ones that are far more telepathic than Rh positive people are in general. I mean, far more.
But this is a really good thing, right? Because they're
it is a good thing. And what's great about this is they're not killing them off. They're not saying we're going to kill all y'all off. We're going to slowly, systematically, over 1 million years or 5 million years, breed you out. And
that's what Susie called the third wave of volunteers. People that are not talking anything spiritual or consciousness or anything there, but they're in systems. They're in government. They're doctors. They're scientists. They're in the systems. And they're there to change it from the inside. She called it the three waves.
Mary Rodwell was who turned me on to Suzanne Hansen, to Susie. And
oh God, that's
her and I did. We did. I haven't talked to her in about 8 or 9 years now, but we did lots and lots and lots.
Who, you and Mary, or you and Susie?
Both. We did lots of interviews because I was changing some of the stuff because I liked Mary, but every now and then she'd get off on these things. I'm like, Mary, look, I got a little bit more experience. Let me. So you ain't got to believe what I'm saying. I said, but I've just been doing it long. Let me show you some things, and it would help her to move to make things fit together, I guess would be a better way of saying it. Susie, I was just talking to because she was simply what she was. She was a contactee, full blown. And she wasn't really trying to make anything out of it. She was just trying to make people understand this is what I am. This is who I am. And her and I had many conversations. Of course, I used to pick on her and tease her all the time, too. So I'd give her hell all the time. I mean, we did shows sometimes that were 4 hours long. So we get into some deep stuff. But she was fun to talk to. She had good knowledge.
Well, it's interesting. I've got opinions about both of them, having dealt with both of them, which I probably don't want to.
And nobody.
But one has the experiences, and the other one has the higher consciousness.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right about that.
Interestingly enough, the one that has the experiences doesn't hold the higher consciousness, which is really interesting to me. But there was a question way back here from Vladdy, I think, which is a great question.
Hey, Vladdy.
Vladdy's in Germany, but it's always about what place. Where is that question?
Now I heard Germany's coming to kick America's ass. Now you better be careful here.
Here it is, I think. Joe Montaldo. What is your favorite experience in regards to otherworldly beings? Great question.
Vladdy. You mean personal experiences or for somebody else's experience?
Personal experience. Actually, that was the question that I had on my lips was like, have you had abduction experiences? Have you had ET contact?
We lost 11 days in Gulf Breeze, Florida. Well documented 11 days we've lost in Gulf Breeze, Florida. My favorite one was the surfing aliens. This is my favorite experience. So we took a group out. So every now and then we'll take a group of contactees out, not just anybody, people we know that are contactees, people that if the aliens see, they're not going to be upset or something or try to hide yourselves from. So we were in Gulf Breeze, Florida on Opal Beach, near Opal Beach, somewhere between Pensacola or somewhere between Santa Rosa Island and Navarre Beach. So it's about 25 miles of just beach and woods and grass and stuff like that. And so we're out there and we're set up. We were all sitting in chairs at first, and I said, I got this sense, because a lot of times you can sense when they're coming. I said, let's go we had a screen tent thing set up. So it was about 8, 9, 10, 10 of us. So we get inside and we're all sitting there. And I remember one of the girls said, what's that? What's what? She said, because the water was real slick and calm. And you started seeing these little white bumps. And you're like, what the hell is that? And there's people all up and down the beach just laying down, making out, watching the stars, stuff like that. It was a beautiful night. All of a sudden, you started seeing these beings they were just riding on air above the water. There was nothing underneath them. There was probably an energy pad underneath them, but we couldn't see it. All you could see was them in the water. They would walk up, they'd come on. You'd see the people kind of get startled. Some would stand up, some would just freeze. And then they would take them. And as soon as they got to the edge of the water, there would be a white light. And then both them and the people were gone. Now, we witnessed this live, all 10 of us. It was insane. And this went on for, I don't know, 2-3 hours up and down the beach. They were just coming in. They would be riding on top of the water. So it got coined, which was bad part of mine, surfing aliens, because George Norrie asked me about the surfing aliens. I said, I should have never used that term. I said, but whatever it was, they were definitely sitting on, they were riding on a cushion of air all the way up to the beach, because you could see whatever they were doing, it would be like white. And then it was like it was creating its own little wake underneath it. And then it would get to the beach, and then it would walk on the sand, and they would take. And these are the grays that are around 5 to 6 feet. They were just coming in, and we learned that a long time too. The only time you see the small grays, the 3-foot grays, do retrievals is usually in someone's home or someone that they've already dealt with that they can trust. They're not really the ones that are allowed to go out and get out into the field. That's the other ones. They let them out. A good friend of mine from Canada was with us on another night we were out there when we seen the thing. We was on Eglin Air Force Base, and we had been having this crazy night. So we left New Orleans, rode up to Gulf Breeze. It was 15 hours we were gone. It was nothing but fog. Everybody was packed in 2 vehicles, like 15, 18 I was packed in 2 vehicles. I mean, just packed. And there was so much fog you couldn't see anything. So we get to Navarre, right next to Eglin Air Force Base. Everybody jumps out. We're walking around. So the girls are walking about 15 feet ahead of us. And I kept hearing them say, "Stop it, leave us alone, stop it." And we're too far back to be doing them anything. And I yelled up and said, "What are you talking about? We're way the hell back here." And then as we picked up its pace a little bit, we started seeing footprints about this big, just popping up. No people, no beings, just footprints. It's like something out of a sticking horror movie or something. It's just pop, 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 3 or 4 rows of them. I'm like, what the hell is this? And then, so we picked up the pace quickly. We wanted to catch up with the girls. And as we did, something rushed between them and knocked them down.
Wow.
And we caught up behind them. So we walk into the gazebo, big, huge ass gazebo. So we're all sitting there drying off from the fog and stuff and talking. And everybody's sitting around with their cameras and phones and all in their laps. And Michael, who's a Canuck, he's from Saskatchewan. He was down helping me for Katrina. I brought him down to help me work on after Katrina.
A Canuck. I do know.
Canadian.
Oh, that's a Canadian.
It's just a slang for Canadians. That's all.
I forgot you guys call yourself Canucks.
But anyway, he's with us, and I hear him say, he said, "Joe, what the hell?" And I look up, and I'm like, "What?" He says, "Look, so you see this thing? Grays are creepy because they like to crawl on walls and ceilings like cockroaches. This thing comes crawling down. There's a pole like this big in the middle of this thing. He crawls down the pole head first, stops 2/3 of the way down, steps his foot against it, steps up like this, steps down, and walks off." I'm like, "What the?" And everybody's at this point, everybody's seeing it. So everybody's standing up. You see this white light. It looks like the sidewalk slab opens up, and a big white light. He just walks in and disappears. So we figured he went on the base. So we decided we're going to go on the base and go see if we could find him. And that was not good. We lost the rest of the night after that. We didn't. We all came back to consciousness sitting in our vehicles.
Oh, okay.
And it was still foggy. But it wasn't like Gulf Breeze. Like when Linda and I lost 11 days, we were on vacation. We weren't going to do any UFO stuff. This was just a vacation.
Is Linda your wife?
Yes, my wife and my son.
Uh-huh.
My son was like 2 years old at the time, maybe 2.5. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to go spend 15 days in Florida, just going from town to town to town on the Panhandle, enjoy ourselves. So we pull in first night. What do we run into? Not ancient aliens. What's the one with Riker was talking about it? Unsolved Mysteries was there.
Unsolved Mysteries.
They were there because they had been seeing these weird things in the Gulf The mayor had reported seeing some stuff in Gulf Breeze. So we said, all right. So they had a thing going on that night over on one of the fishing piers next to the bridge. They were going to go out and set up and see if they could find a UFO. So we're out there. It's like 2:00 in the morning. The mayor's out there with us. The police chief's out there with us. The charge of they had all kind of people out there. And I think even the governor of Florida was there. And you see this thing off in the bay, green, just pulsating under the water, cruising along, and it comes underneath the fishing pier, and it goes on the fishing pier, and then it goes underneath the the raised part of the bridges, the new bridges, and then it goes out on the railroad trestle, and then it stops, and then it raises up, and as it raises up, there's like gold balls about this big just dripping off of it, like it was, I don't know what it was just like running off and dripping off and hitting the water and disappearing, and everybody on that bridge had a camera. Did I see one of them taking a picture? Not even myself. No one took not even one picture. And the only video feeds running got 0. There's lots of noise. You can hear everybody talking about what they're seeing, but you can't see anything. This thing just sat there, kind of rose up, and then it was gone. So we left.
Do you think that they control us to like not take photographs in some way? They control.
Well, so we learned something about the ships early on. If you're within a mile of a ship, you're not getting a clear photo, even if you take one. It's not.
Is that because of the energy around?
We don't know if it's intentional or if it's propulsion drives. I know I was standing underneath one with a digital watch, and the digital watch started spinning backwards.
They're saying it's I'm checking in with my mob. I call my guides my mob, and they're saying it's the frequency around the ships that.
Yeah, it probably is. Whatever it is, though, you're not getting any pictures now. If you're lucky, you have a really good camera. Like we got one really good one down in Mexico. This thing's cruising along through the desert, and you could see it coming. It looked like a storm because between the bottom of the ship and the ground, it was creating dust kicking up and down. So it was forming around the ship so you could see it. And so you could see that really good, but we were more than 3 miles away when the picture was taken, and they zoomed in and you hit it was a pretty decent picture. But anything closer, you're not going to get. I mean, you could try. So people always say, I got to get close. No, getting close is not going to help you. That's why in the old days, when they used to go to Area 51, they'd get off on the mountain and get on the top because they already knew at 3 or 4 miles, they can get a good picture. Anything closer, they were not getting a good picture. And some people say, oh, it's the Grays did this. Well, it doesn't matter what craft it was. You just weren't getting that picture. It's crazy how it works, but you no matter what you do, and even today, all this new technology we have today, it's still no one's getting pictures. And actually, I got a good question for you. Why do we get less pictures in less cases today with 8 billion people on the planet than we did just 15 years ago?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And everybody has a camera, in their hand. That's a really good question. I want to do a station ID break because this has gone so quickly. So you're listening to I.C.A.R and Swain, accentuating the positive on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3 FM. And my guest today is the boss, Joe Montaldo.
Peace. Well, I'm having a little button made for y'all, so all you got to do is click it. A little promo made for y'all. You got to do is click it, and it does the station IDs for y'all.
Well, that'd be a good thing. That'd be cool. Yeah, that's cool. I used to be on Sydney radio. I started all this radio thing. 2009 on Sydney Community Radio. Yeah, we had station ID buttons and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that'd be great. But you have got so many stories. I can't imagine.
I've been doing this for a little while. But I mean, like the golf piece thing, I mean, that was our first day there. We had weird stuff happen. Second day, we had weird stuff happen. Third day, we checked into this hotel at Opal Beach. And beautiful hotel. I mean, the room was on the beach. I mean, the sand was basically coming in the back door. It was so nice. We checked in. And I remember, I said, I said, Lynn, I'm going to go pay them. We're going to stay another couple of nights, right? And because I paid them for a week, and I was going to go. And they said if we stayed a week, they'd give you another 3 days with this deal. So I said, okay. We go in. I walk in. The lady's looking at me like I got the plague or something. I'm like, what's the matter? She said, where have you been? I said, what are you talking about? I said, I've been going and coming. She said, your car hasn't left in 7 days. In 11 days. I said, what do you mean? She said, your car hasn't. We're getting ready to have it towed.
Wow.
Like, what are you talking about? She said, your car's been here for 11 days. She said, no one's been in your room. Nothing's unpacked. No food's taken out the refrigerator. She said, where have you been? I said, what are you talking about? So I went and got my cash out, had not spent even $1. Looked at my credit card. I only had to charge from the first night.
So your whole family, including your wife and your son, well, that is your family,
had 11 days of missing time.
11 days.
Have you found out what happened to you during that time?
We know some of it. It's a scary thing because we've done some hypnosis work on some of it, and we've recovered like the night that it happened. We recovered that. It was weird because we were messing around on the beach. We were out there messing with the dolphins, and there was a bunch of dolphins swimming in between us. And I was doing some crabbing, and my son was trying to catch crabs with a net, and I was laughing my ass off. And all I remember is I looked up, someone grabbed Linda, and then this guy came out of nowhere in black and grabbed my son, and I lost my special forces. I lost my mind. And I remember it took about 8 people to get me down on the ground. So the first memories for me, it's got to be Milad.
Right.
Aliens wouldn't do it this way. It's got to be Milad. Oh,
Right.
no, they were just handing us over is all they were doing. So when you get into the memory, next thing you remember, we're standing. So let me start back. So while all this is going on, all this on the beach is going on, we noticed there was 2 guys at the end of this pier fishing. And we kept seeing this green thing bobbing up and down the water. I thought somebody had took one of them glow sticks and threw it out in the water. And it kept bobbing and bobbing. As it got closer to the pier, all of a sudden these 2 guys started screaming. I mean, screaming like little babies, and just started running. I'm like, what the hell? So right after that is when I noticed someone grabbing Linda. It was almost like it was a distraction. And then that's when I lost it. And then the next thing we remember is standing in this room, didn't see my kid anywhere. I was flipping out about that. And Linda was standing next to me, and there was a whole room full of people lined up, like in zombie mode, just kind of standing. I'm like, what the hell? And I recognized the 2 guys. Well, actually, Linda did first. She said, isn't that them 2 guys? And I said, that's them 2 guys. So they were there. They had taken them and put them in this room. I don't know what was going on in that room. They took Linda, and they walked me along, and what we call the redheaded doctor showed up. He's in so many alien cases that it's disgusting. He's a hybrid of some sort. And his hair is different colors from time to time, but he's always like 6'6". He's a big thing, and he's always wearing a mask, so you never get a full look at his face. He kind of talks and moves like a hybrid. He doesn't, like one of those hybrid Men in Black guys. He has this awe feeling. Anyway, there's this big steel thing in the center of the room with 8 stirrup sets in there. There's already 7 women in. They sit Linda down, and they're going through. I think they were removing eggs. Some of them they were checking pregnancy. Some they were removing eggs, and they did all of that. And then they took us to another room, and then my kid was in there playing with other kids. He was like, nothing happened. Hey, look at this little shit.
So you say, Kit, that your son was in there. He was about 2 at the time?
Yeah, about closer to 3, but 2 years, 8 months, something like that. 9 months.
So he's in a room with other kids, playing with other kids, and he's happy. He's like,
yeah, he's happy. He's having a good old time.
And
so,
they were taking eggs from Linda. They were taking.
That's what they were doing. Yeah.
And what were they doing to you?
Nothing at the time. I was like on a tour.
Oh, you're.
So come to find out, years later, about a decade later, I was having a fit about extraterrestrials, and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. Matter of fact, if you ever listen to the intro on my song, that's what that song's about. I went out in the woods where I know they were taking and doing regular experiments, and I just had a fit. I said, I've had it. I said, I don't care what you do anymore. I'm not doing anything for y'all. This is bullshit. I never get anything in return. I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm tired of it. And after that, they started showing themselves regularly again, and with any question I asked was answered. They just started asking. So I would ask, and they would answer, and I'd ask, and I answer.
I don't have any memory of being abducted. I might have, but I can ask them, and they'll answer.
Tell you this now: if you're telepathic or empathic, you've been taken, and since before you were born.
I have. Yeah, I suspect I have. Absolutely.
Nobody's a one-time abductee, and nobody gets taken in the middle of their life.
And
I know people always want to believe that, but it's
I should have some regression sessions about that. I should just ask them. Really, they're saying, yeah, they're affirming that I have. Oh,
well, they don't always tell you the truth. Now you got to remember it.
They
judge you.
They're reminding me of a memory that I had during the Australian fires. Actually, Preston reported it on his show. He said some Australian woman before he knew me, and I was in the shower and I had this vision of this. I was looking at the bottom of a ship, and it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. I've never ever seen anything that looked quite like it, but this is a poor version of what I saw. Like the lights underneath the ship was so beautiful. It was massive, And then the next thing I knew, my consciousness, because I was still in my body in the shower and conscious of being in my body in the shower, was inside the ship, and I was looking at greys, and they had all the Australian marsupials. They had all the DNA and the thing, because people were all worried about all the Australian marsupials being burnt in the fires back in 2020. And they showed me, they said, no, it's all right, don't worry about it. We've got the genome, we've got all the genetics, and we've rescued some of the animals, we'll put them back. And they were showing me that. But that wasn't me up on the ship, that was just my consciousness up on the ship. And
okay, so let me before you go any further, remember now, there's 3 types of abductions. There's a physical abduction, there's a non-physical abduction, and then there's another form of a non-physical abduction. So there's abduction where they take you, I guess you could call it spirit. It's not really what it is, but it's your consciousness.
Like remote viewing. It felt like remote viewing.
Well, the Greys do this differently. Well, all the races do, but so they can take you and leave your body there and put you on the ship, and you can walk around and be what's going on, just like you would do if you had your body, because they give you some options that most people don't realize. So on the ship itself, they can put you in a host body if they want to, or what they call a husk body.
Yeah.
Which is what's going to happen for some people in the future. They can also put you in a hologram body because their entire ship has hologram generators over the whole ship. So for them, it's a little different than what it is for us. Plus, when you're there, you're about 80 times as smart as you are here, because anything you learn there, so you can basically download what you want to know when you're on board this ship. You plug your little finger in, think about it, and it uploads into your consciousness. Parts of those, that's how we figured out what uploads were on the planet. Those are stuff you've uploaded, different things you've learned while you're on the ship. So they allow you to upload some of that to your brain, because unfortunately, this brain we have cannot hold all that information that we learned while we were there.
Absolutely.
So, but while you're there on any of their ships, no matter where you are, you're always connected. Your brain is always connected to the hard drive, always. So what you're thinking, what you're doing, what you're learning, what you're performing is being stored. All of it's being stored. They do that for a couple of reasons. Because for the people who are going to be taken in the end off world, they have that information. They can upload that into a husk body at any time. Because we couldn't figure out why aliens were hanging around graveyards and hospitals so much, and mortuaries. We were like, what kind of morbid fascination is this? Well, the Greys were quite honest about it. They said, no, we can remove your consciousness up to 3 to 5 days after you're dead. So there's no reason for us to rush. We can go in, take your consciousness out, put it on a disc, put it in storage, put you in a holodeck book if we want, or put you in a new husk body, whichever way we want to do it. Because they're planning on they've already been doing it. They've been doing it for a long time. They take people off world all the time.
Yeah.
So death for them is not death for us when you're with them is not the same.
Yeah, there's a violent Netflix series. My daughter told me to watch it because I talk about this stuff all the time. But the series is so violent, like most shows. But they call the human body the sleeve, and people are killing each other all the time because
you're talking about Altered Carbon. You should watch that.
Yes, Altered Carbon.
But listen, I'm gonna give you first off, I got to give you a warning. There's a lot of violence in it. There's a lot of nudity in it. There's a lot of sex, a lot of sex and nudity. So we usually have a rule. If we see boobies in the first 5 minutes, we usually won't watch something. This was well worth watching it. It's because usually it turns out to be a crappy movie. But
I thought it was pretty
in this case. In this case, it was there's some really good stuff in this. Not some of it is it's 2 years.
Well, the whole concept
2 seasons
of no death, and they're not afraid. Like there was this husband and wife team that their job was to fight and kill one another, like and then they would get a new sleeve, they would get an upgrade, a better body.
Yeah.
So that whole concept of no death I thought was fascinating. That's why my daughter.
Well, it's because we're going. So in 1999, Boeing, along with I forgot which hospital, I think it was Masters and Johnson, came out and said that they were looking for ways to store consciousness so that they could be uploaded to a clone body or a husk body.
Right.
So we stopped looking at cloning and started looking at husk body. Husk bodies are different because they're a mix of DNA, so there's no clone problem with them. So they can be bred and used just like any other person. So they make those, but they can also be enhanced. And they can enhance the memory, they can enhance the brain strength, they can have muscle memory. That's all stuff that we're working on now. It's all stuff that's in this series, by the way. Things like muscle memory and things like that.
Yeah.
All that's in there. So instant learning, that's also in there. They can just plug you in, upload stuff to your consciousness. All of that's in there. So and this is all stuff that we're working on today. Matter of fact, if you're a gifted psychic, ladies and gentlemen, I mean a gifted psychic, the Air Force and the Navy are looking for you. In 2000, they fired all their remote viewers and opened up psychic programs, both of them.
Wow.
And so you know the government believes, because the government has programs for telepaths.
So this is publicly. This isn't covertly. This is publicly. They're looking. God, we are running out of time. What do we got left?
It's a top secret public program. They had to make it public because the only way they can find you or me or anybody else is to make it public. Because psychics aren't the easiest thing to find. And to be honest, 90% of the people who say they're psychics turn out not to be. You know, like when people tell me, well, J, the number, I see the letter J, bullshit. When I see somebody, I see their name, what they look like. I can tell you the damn address.
There's different levels of psychics and different, and they have different,
I think
jobs.
Different level of scams.
Well,
see, that's what the problem is. People like James Edwards, who got busted scamming, gives it a bad thing. Just like, what's her name? I can't think of her name. She got busted scamming too.
As a psychic myself, I can tell you that I'm really good at some things that other psychics can't do. Like I'm really good at downloading information from higher consciousness, but I'm not good at tell me what's on this letter type thing. That sort of
that's a telepath. That's why. That's not psychic. That's different.
Well, I don't know. Like I'm really good at some things and really bad at other things. I don't know if my fear gets in the way, if I get tested.
Well,
I don't know.
I think the real problem is there's about 7 ventures here that this goes across. Like what we was just talking about, empath, telepathy, telekinesis, things like that. There's levels, and not everybody's going to be a good telepath or a good empath. They're going to have the ability, and they will sense things, especially if it's somebody close to you, probably even sense it even faster. But their gift may lie in a different place.
So this is what they're telling me right now. So I'm getting this information coming in right now. They're saying that, depending on how you're using it, it's like anything. If you don't use it, you're not going to be good at it. But if you use it, so they're saying with me, I give messages to people from spirit, not necessarily from dead people, but from their guides and their higher self. And I utilize that all the time and I use it. That's why I'm good at it. I don't do the sort of like, tell me what's written on this card thing. I never do that. But they're saying that if you practice that, you'd get good at it, like anything. And I said, that makes sense.
Well, so if you have the ability, you'll get good at it.
Yeah. Well,
not everybody's a telepath.
Well, not everybody is, but I believe we all could be. And
I used to believe that, but we started testing.
You said that. You said that.
No, but the difference between you and I is we've tested over 10,000 people.
Well, that's true. That is the difference.
So it's a difference for us. So we learned early on. So, ladies and gentlemen, anybody can do this, by the way. You can take some cards, a deck of cards, just nothing fancy, some colored cards. It doesn't even matter what it is. Take a deck of cards, get a little sign, go to the mall. Most malls will let you do this. Put some candy out or something and put up, we're testing for telepathic abilities. You'll be amazed at how many people will come sit down to be tested.
And now, are they good or
the
not
reason
good?
I bring this up is most people don't even get 50-50. They get like 70-30 negative, which means there is no abilities there whatsoever.
Well, this is the information that's coming through. It's not that they don't have the ability. It's just that they haven't practiced it. It's like anything. If you're not good at it, if you stop using your body, and I know
but latent telepaths will have experienced
then your
something.
muscles atrophy. If you stop using that aspect of your mind, then that aspect of your mind will atrophy. And humans have never been taught to use that aspect of their mind.
Yes, but I think the majority of positive people will never have telepathic abilities. They're being phased out. Why would they give them telepathic abilities? I think if you come from a family line that's already got it, you're safe. But if you don't, you're probably done.
There's Viva La Vive says telepathic and psychic.
Psychic is just the realm over all the abilities.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I call that. The psychics that I deal with, because there are people that work professionally as psychics, say, I read your future. I can sort of read the future or see your past. And then there's the mediums that say, I speak to spirit or dead people. Mm-hmm. But, and then, I don't think telepathy is even up until the telepathy files that I told you about, that podcast. That's now number 1 on the podcast list. People aren't even talking about telepathy in the mainstream world, but that's
because it's different. I mean, most people are more interested in telepaths, in regular old psychics that can tell you your future, or tarot readers, or rappers,
it's the sort of mainstream understanding, isn't it?
Something that can help you to do your life.
Right.
And I used to read a lot of tarot. Matter of fact, I used to read for the volunteer. I've even read a lot of famous people. I quit reading because to me it's dangerous. I've lost some really good friends over it.
Who did you read for? I used to read for who? What did you say?
The bottom of the teacup. It's about a 250-year-old place in the French Quarter of New Orleans. They tell long they've been reading and doing reading cards and tea leaves there. And they brought me in, and because I was extremely gifted. But the problem for me is a lot of times I seen negative stuff. A good friend of mine, we had just bought front row seats to Stevie Nicks, and she come by the house. She said, "I want you to read my cards." I'm like, "Wow, we're going to a concert tomorrow." She said, "No, read my cards. I want you to read them tonight." I said, "Okay."
Stevie Nicks asked you to read your cards.
No. This is just a friend of mine. No, we were just going to her concert. That's all. It was a night before. It was a night before the concert. So she came in. She said, "Could you read my cards?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "You're pregnant?" And she said, "How did you know?" I said, "Because it says you're going to have a miscarriage, and it says you're going to have it tomorrow." Because we designed a different kind of reading. So, sure enough, I said, "You need to stay home." I said, "Please don't come." I said, "I'll buy you tickets from you. Just don't. I want to go." I said, "Just don't." So she stayed. And sure enough, she had a miscarriage. And the doctor told her if she wouldn't have been within 5 minutes of the hospital, she'd be dead. And if she would have been at the concert, she'd have been dead because there would have been no way to get her out of there. And I've seen too many things like that. So I was kind of sort of retired. I'll read for special people every once in a while. And to be honest with you, I got to the point where I didn't need the cards anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I got to the point, I don't know. But we designed I hate to call it foolproof, but we designed a way to read cards that's much better than anything else out there. Myself and several other gifted people designed a setup so that before you even start, the 4 center cards are what's going on in your life right now. But more importantly, the 3 sets of 2 over here are your last 3 months. So if those 4 things aren't right, then there's no reason to read the cards. If they can't get your past and your present right, there's no reason to worry about the future because they're not going to get it right either. So once we know we have a reading where both the immediate time is and the past is, then it's easy to go on because you know the readings are going to be good readings. And when we switched over to that, they became 80% more accurate.
So Susan says, how is saving your friend's life a bad thing? Is that because
it wasn't a bad thing? It was a bad thing for me. It wasn't for her.
I think that what she's trying to say is that, like, if you can do that, why have you stopped? Yeah,
because I have, to date, I have seen at least 24 people that were going to die at least 2 years before they were going to. I called it the dark gift. I hated it.
I don't think it's a dark gift. I have that ability.
Well, you can't go up to one of your friends and say, "Guess what? You know what? I seen you're going to die."
No, but what you can do, because I have that ability too, Joe. I know when people are going to die. It's not the best, But what you can say to them is like, that stuff that you've put off, do it. You know how you don't speak to your father?
That's true too. Yeah, dude, that's a good idea.
I told my girlfriend that her father was going to die within the 2 years, and she's like, "Nah, he's as strong as an ox. He's not going to die." I said, "He's not well, and he's probably only got 2 years left. So make some time to be with him."
And in all fairness, I predicted a lot of babies' births too.
A lot of babies' births. We got 3 minutes left.
Hey man, I'll tell Sean. I'll tell Sean he's fired, man. Sean, you're fired. You got to go. Sean be like, "What do you mean I'm fired?"
So who's coming up after me?
Sean. Sean's one of my co-hosts. I got to be nice to him.
Into the Night, isn't it? What's his show?
Yeah, he's in tonight. He co-hosts with us on Friday night on News and the Flip Side and on the chat. By the way, before you go, real quick, on those shows, you're welcome anytime. Now, you probably don't want to come around News and the Flip Side because it can get pretty rough over there. The chat, though, is a show that for some reason became really popular. It's already got 2 million listeners, and it's only got 5 shows. And it's a show completely about nothing, everything, all in the same breath. It's a lot of fun.
I've listened to quite a few of your shows, and I'm like,
this is different. This is a different format for me.
I had an old boyfriend. He's since left the planet, but when I was young, and he used to say, "You're all over the shop like a mad woman's breakfast," was one of his sayings.
I get like that on some nights.
And I'm like,
I get to curse on News on the Flip Side, which I really like. I can't curse on the other shows. Well, the chat I can, but my other 3 shows I can't curse on.
Oh my God!
I get somebody said I never knew you cursed. I said I'm a sailor, man. Give me a break. What do you think? I got to the Navy, man. Come on.
There's about a million questions that I didn't get to ask.
Oh, well, we always get we got lots of time on the network, so go ahead. I don't want to get you in no trouble with the boss lady. I seen she was texting earlier. So
was she?
Oh, darling, it's been such a joy to get to know you a bit better. I still feel like I've only got to know you just a little bit better, but what you're doing is absolutely amazing. And what I want to say to people is, if you ever felt alone in this conversation, let me tell you, you are not. There are just millions and millions and millions and millions of people that are having this conversation. And I did want to talk about disclosure in 2025, and we didn't even get around to it. But it will be exponentially bigger this year, I think, as it comes out in the public arenas, all this stuff that's coming out in the public arenas. Don't you think, Joe?
Oh, yeah, it's going to. I'm hoping to see just an all around much better. Why don't you go up that picture? I wanted to show you a picture that Michelle just sent me, but I guess it's not going to let me. It's I would really like to see an all the way around much better cooperation with everybody this year. I want to see the government not. Yeah, you know who that guy is.
There's you in Preston. Where are you? You look like you're
we are at the. I go every year. This is the Writers of the Future Gala event at the ball.
Nice.
Preston's one of the older winners. He's won before, so he was there for the gala.
I'm a big fan of Preston Dennett and Dolly.
He's good. We call him the nicest ufologist.
He's amazing, but you know,
he's a sweetie compared to the rest of us people.
We've run out of time, but his abilities are incredible. I could talk to him about.
He's a gifted guy.
He's a gifted guy. Joe, love you big time. Thank you so much for letting me on your network. You're amazing. Come back on the show. I want you to come back. You'll have to do part 2. Sherry says, "Yeah, we'll have to do part 2, 3, 4, 5.
Anytime. Y'all know where I'm at. I'm easy to find most of the time."
And thanks everybody for listening and watching, and thanks for all your questions. Sorry I didn't get around to answering all your questions. We'll get Joe back on the show. He's amazing, but you know, he's on 5 or 6 shows on the network, so you can listen to him on all the other networks, all the other shows. See you later. Thanks so much again for coming. Bye for now.